Whether it's bad planning, bad luck, bad timing, or bad inventions, well-intentioned bad decisions have plagued history for thousands of years. Welcome to Historic Hindsight. Hello and welcome to Historic Hindsight. I'm John, that's Tom. Today we're going to talk to you about cereal, right?
Yeah, well, cereal in a biography episode. I mean, cereal's thrown in there, so...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, cereal. This is gonna be super entertaining.
Yeah, well, tell me everything I never wanted to know.
Okay, so, well, we're actually going to be focusing on one of the inventors of cereal, John Harvey Kellogg, who, as you can guess by by the last... Johnny, what did he invent, or what was he part of?
Cheerios.
Cheerio. Well, yep.
Eventually,
maybe. So John Harvey Kellogg, he was a medical doctor, and nutritionist, inventor, health advocate, businessman, and Seventh-day Adventist. So, weird, but loved his cereal. He was born on February 26th, 1852 in Tyrone, Michigan. His brother is Will Keith Kellogg, who is actually the founder of Kellogg Company, which he kind of actually just stole this idea from John, and we'll get there.
Well, eventually. Maybe he was the businessman. Maybe.
Yeah, and just flat out stole it.
Okay, well, so he was the businessman.
Yeah, he's the business. Yeah, he's
the better one.
Yeah, exactly. So he's one of 17 children. So
holy shit!
What? 17 fucking children. I cannot imagine that. I don't like the 5 that I have, let alone throw another 12 on top of that.
Yeah, we're getting on people today for having, 4 or 5 kids or whatever and saying that they're ruining the earth. It's all these 1800s
people that had 17.
Who had 17 to 24 kids.
To be fair, like, there's a 50% casualty rating with both of those kids, so it's like he had 8, 6, 7 or 8.
I mean, still.
Yeah. That actually probably would survive. I don't know. So his father's name was John Preston Kellogg, and had 2 marriages, which is where the 17 children came from. And like his second marriage, he was like not wanting to have kids, but his second wife was like, no, like we need to have something of our own. And
well, then, also it's 1852, and I'm guessing options were not
as quite as good as
not as good as they are today.
Today, yeah. Fair point. His father was a very religious man and was a member of several revivalist churches, including the Baptist Church, Congregational Church, and then finally winds up into the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So that's where John Kellogg gets introduced to the Seventh-day Adventist, and in fact, actually, he's part of the whole founding of this church. So we're going way back to the beginning here.
All right.
Yep. So John would only attend school briefly from ages 9 to 11.
That's probably enough.
Which is like, yeah, good. But like, now we start our kids at like 5, so it's like, he got a late start, and then 2 years,
and they're like, you know what you don't need is an education. Let me tell you about God.
But keep in mind, I did say he's a medical doctor, so he has 2 years of formal education, and yet somehow still becomes a medical doctor.
Because it's the 1800s, and you can do whatever the hell you
want.
There's
ghosts in your blood. Do cocaine about it. So John, however, was still an avid reader and was largely self-taught and self-educated, so that's where most of his knowledge comes from.
Oh, at least he read.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. Which I'm surprised he had time for, because back in that time frame, I'm sure he was put to work on the farm, free child labor and such. At the age of 12, he was offered to work with the Whites, who are the founders of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, in their print shop, and he rose from an errand boy to the printer's devil. Which is a fun title, Printer's Devil. Which it basically just means apprentice. Yeah. It's just apprentice is all it is. And then eventually he winds up going to proofreading and editing for the Seventh-day Adventist's, printing press, the newspaper. Yeah,
I suppose.
I guess. He did work on editing White's articles on health and how to live and the health reformers. So he learned about the principles of vegetarianism, because I guess at this time the Seventh-day Adventist Church was very much about like healthy living, not eating meat, vegetarian, respect all life, never have sex with anything.
Yeah, well, I knew about that last bit, the vegetarian portions of it I wasn't aware of.
Seems a little weird. Yeah, they're at least at this very beginning part, they were super into like, healthy diet, vegetarian, don't eat meat.
Of the earth.
Yeah, I get. Yeah,
but except for that whole sex thing, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
Be ashamed of your body.
Yeah, definitely be ashamed of your body. White's wife would ultimately say that White would have a closer relationship with John than any of his own children. So that seems to be a common pattern in like the 1800s too. Like you find this fellow friend that you treat better than your own damn kids.
Yeah. Well,
opposed-
I mean, because you just have to take care of the kids all the time, and so they're just always around, and then you find somebody else that you can
Apprentice who actually gives a shit and listens to you.
Yeah, that'll pay attention when you tell them to do something.
Yeah. So at the age of 16, John does have a dream of becoming a teacher, and he does get to be a teacher at a school district in Hastings, Michigan. Again, a guy who's had 2 years of education is now a teacher at the age of 16.
At the age of 16.
At the age of 16 in Hastings, Michigan.
Christ almighty.
By the age of 20, John actually finally enrolls in a teacher's training course. So he's been
4
teaching
years,
for 4 years.
Into it, he's like, hey, you know what? Maybe I should actually
learn
figure out how to do this.
And he does attend Michigan State Normal School, which is now Eastern Michigan University.
Huh. Okay.
So, some colleges now he's finally getting into. You know what? Again, it's back in the time he had no formal, undergraduate education, but screw it. We'll let him go to college.
I mean, well, he's been teaching since he was 16, so
might as well.
Gotta know something, right?
However, White would actually convince John to follow his brothers into a 6-month medical course at Russell Stroud's Hygiene Therapeutic College in New Jersey. So
6-month medical. I mean,
6 months.
That's
fair.
College. That's probably plenty of time.
Yeah,
you're prescribing whiskey or cocaine or morphine or any of them.
Yeah, opium.
Yeah,
throw a little bit of that.
Whatever.
Although probably not the opium. That was more of a Chinese thing, and
well,
we're not so happy about the Chinese at this point.
Yeah, we're not. I mean, maybe they were into the Eastern
medicine. Could have been. So John does go off to the medical school, and with White's help, they develop a team of medical doctors for the church. So again, going along with that vegetarian thing, holistic style of living, the church wanted like a whole, basically hospital to go along with their teachings. Because again, this is a new church. This is this is the founding of the Seventh-day Advocats.
Right, but this is again doctors mixing with churches,
and it's a little bit of an odd concept in the modern society.
It's a weird combination.
Yeah, and this will, spoiler a little bit, this is gonna bite John in the ass a little bit later down the road with the church, because there's that whole science church thing that doesn't always go together.
The whole disagreements and all that.
Yeah, it'll bite him in the ass here in a little bit. We'll get there. Upon completion of the program, John would attend medical school at the University of Ann Arbor in Michigan and at New York University. So he actually extends his 6-month medical school and goes to 2 other different universities as well.
Oh, good for him. He's putting in the work now.
It sure is. Yep. A little bit unlike Leonardo da Vinci, this guy's actually putting in his work and following through,
Finishing something for once.
Exactly. In 1875, he would actually graduate with a medical degree.
Finishing something.
Yep, finished something. At the age of 23 in October 1876, he would become the director of Western Health Reform Institute, renamed the Battle Creek Medical Surgical Sanitarium, which is the medical hospital or sanitarium that's attached to the church.
Okay.
So, hey, he's the head of the hospital.
Great. Good for him. Just graduate and become head of the hospital.
Yep.
Life was easier back then, wasn't it?
It sure as shit was a lot easier, yeah.
You just kind of do what you want and
yeah, like as long as you can fake, like pretend like you know what you're doing.
As long as you have a bunch of money behind you.
But then again, I guess there wasn't like background checks back then. Like you kind of had to be taken at your word. So, I mean, I guess there's that.
Yeah, prove it. What are they going to go get a telegram or something? And
oh my god! So this sidebar, this reminds me of a random story, like in the Wild West, like about doctors and competing doctors and how you didn't really need a degree and all that kind of crazy crap.
Right.
So there was this. So in one of the Wild West villages, there was a doctor who'd established his medical practice in a tent. Another doctor came along and built a little cabin and wanted his medical practice to go on. They get into a fight with each other because this town's not big enough for the both of us.
They never are. They should build bigger towns.
And as retaliation, one doctor goes to the other doctor and like, I don't believe you're a doctor. Give me your degree. And he hands him his degree. Then he just rips it up and throws it on the ground. So naturally, the recourse is to shoot him in the face.
Of course, he just ruined his livelihood.
Yeah. So, obviously this is the time frame that we're talking about in regards to just pure sensical things where people are actually doctors and get their degrees and everybody's being reasonable. But in any case, Kellogg would actually lead this institution all the way up until his death in 1943. So to give you a little bit of background information about the Seventh-day Adventist Church and a little bit of John Kellogg's personal beliefs, the Seventh-day Adventists it's a Protestant Christian denomination that observes a holy day on the seventh day of the week, which is Saturday, just like the Jewish calendars. So,
Okay.
Not a whole lot difference there, except that there's a big emphasis, excuse me.
There it is.
There it is, on the imminent second coming of Christ.
So it's right around the corner.
Christ is coming back right around the corner. So they believe that
This
the
was
holy
what
day.
year?
Yeah. So they believe the holy days on Saturday, and Jesus is coming right around the corner. And the church was founded in 1863. So nailed it.
Well, I mean, to be fair, what it really is right around the corner in biblical terms.
Yeah, I mean, because
people live to be 400 or 500 years in the Bible, and
yeah. So it could still be right around the corner.
Around the corner could be it could be several hundred years from 1863.
Exactly. He does believe in the immortality of the human soul, and that death is just an unconscious state until the spirit is awoke. So I guess when you die, you're not really dead. Your spirit lives on, kind of like an afterlife.
Yeah,
that's pretty normal-ish Christian beliefs. They do believe that sex is impure.
Okay. How many brothers and sisters?
17. Or 16. He's one of 17 kids.
Some pretty impure parents there.
Some very impure parents. Kellogg actually takes. Well, I think the idea there is that like you're only supposed to have sex to make the babies, which is why there's 17 babies.
Oh, okay.
But Kellogg actually takes this belief to the next level, and he felt that all sex was a sin, and reportedly never had sex with his wife, and all of his own 8 children were actually adopted. So allegedly he was a virgin. Allegedly he never had sex. All of his 8 kids were adopted.
Were they actually, or he just, we don't know, or
no? He
did have adopted kids.
Yes, okay. They are. All of his 8 children are. Yeah, that's not alleged. All of his kids are adopted, but it's alleged that he never had sex.
The trapping his poor wife in a sexless marriage is not alleged.
Yeah, and he never tugged it as a 13-year-old because he also believed that that masturbation was a sin, and he was a huge anti-masturbation advocate, claiming that masturbation was a sin and that through proper diet one could remove the desire from themselves entirely to have sex, to masturbate, to anything. So,
and I'm guessing that proper diet is where we're going to get onto
breakfast cereals. You are a mind reader, Johnny. So the last thing that he does believe is he also believes that God it was present in all things. So this is where he's going to get in trouble with the church a little bit later on, because he actually has a belief that if science exists, God's got his hand in science. So that's why you can have these juxtapositions, because God's everywhere, which the church doesn't like later.
Well, and I guess if you think God has a hand in all things, then I could understand why you would not be comfortable. Why you'd be uncomfortable masturbating.
Yeah, slow tugging it. We're not going to do that. If
not if God's in your hand too. I guess
it'd be a little awkward.
You can follow his train of thought at least, which is nice.
Yeah, that's nice. It's nice. So he would go on to invent a whole market of different vegetarian foods. In 1877, he began experimenting with softer breakfast foods that were made of a doughy wheat mixture of oats, corn, wheat. It would be baked at a high temperature, which would turn the starch into dextrin, which he then broke that bread into smaller crumbs and served it as a snack. The guy invented granola. Yeah. So he tried to market under the name Granola, but that name was already taken by Caleb Jackson, the asshole. So he changed it to Granola because he's real.
Caleb Jackson
guy? I don't know. He's a guy apparently invented Granola, which is a similar-ish snack. But Kellogg got the last laugh because nobody remembers Granola, but we remember Granola.
Yeah. So he literally set out making this company with the idea of making things so bland that people would not want to touch themselves.
Yes, yeah.
So that he could then save these souls.
Yes, his idea is that sugar would get you too excited and randy, so we need vegetarianism because it's the healthier way, and it's the way that you can get spiritual to God.
Yeah.
And B, with healthy vegetarian diet, that's bland, you're not going to have a sex drive.
He's gonna lose his shit when he finds out what happened to cereal these days.
Well, Johnny, spoiler alert, we'll get there because that's where him and his brother start to have a little bit of a falling out. Initially, granola was used in the sanitarium, and it kind of grew into what was called the Sanitas Food Company in 1890. So part of his medical sanitarium, he would actually have these snacks that were given to the clients. We'll get into the sanitarium and what it was. It's kind of its own little weird. Think of like a really rich yuppie resort
Yeah.
that claims that it's got a medical hospital attached to it, and that's kind of what it is.
Okay. Yeah.
It's almost like it's almost like a rehab facility, but without the funds of having the drugs beforehand. So, in 1894, he began developing what would become cornflakes. By this time, Kellogg has actually invented several vegetarian dishes that were all very bland in flavor to reduce excitement and sexual arousal and masturbation. But he just wasn't
Anti-aphrodisiac.
It is an anti-aphrodisiac, and what he wanted was a universal breakfast cereal that you could that was long lasting, shelf stable, that you could have, across the trail going out to Utah's and all that fun stuff. That would act as an anti-aphrodisiac. So the story is a little bit convoluted about who's fully participating in the invention here of cornflakes. Obviously, you have his brother who's stole the idea, that's trying to claim that he was the major part of it.
Right.
And then there's everything else that goes on with it. So we'll get into that here. So allegedly, according to the patent laws, the only person's name that's on it is John Kellogg. And John had allegedly worked with his wife Ella, and his younger brother Will to develop this. So what they began,
so there you go.
yeah. So what they began to do is they made a wheat berry dough mixture that was similar to granola, and that his brother or his wife, we don't know which one, suggested rolling it out into thin sheets. So John actually would develop and invent a roller system to roll the dough into very thin sheets prior to baking. But then one day, Johnny, he got a little bit lazy, and he left the dough out overnight, came down the next morning and was like, well, oh well, I'm not going to just throw this away.
Yeah.
So he ran it through the roller, and it broke into thin little tiny pieces.
Perfect.
Yeah. And then so when it would bake, it was these little flakes. Yeah, it's perfect. John then set Will to be tasked to figure out how and why the dough did this and to recreate it reliably, which is really simple. Just leave the shit out overnight.
Yeah, just let it dry out.
Exactly. So this became the patent for all flake cereals. So John Kellogg was the first to patent flake cereals, and all of it stems to this one invention. So, any Raisin Bran, Corn Flakes,
Frosted Flakes,
it all stems to this idea. But Will and Ella, they were constantly at odds with each other, and then they would like to minimize each other's involvement in the story. So by the time that the flake cereals and process of preparing the same was filed, that patent, on the 31st of May, 1895, John's name was the only one who appeared. And you know what it was, is John was sick of dealing with his brother and his wife and said, nobody's on this but me. Screw you guys.
Yeah, I'm not picking a side here.
Yep. The first year saw sales in the tens of thousands of pounds under Granos. It was the name. So very successful right off the bat, especially 1895. I can't imagine the distribution and production is going to be that high. So yeah, tens of thousands of pounds. He's doing good. By 1898, John had experimented with rice and corn as well as wheat, and in 1898 he released the first batch of Sanitas toasted cornflakes. Oh man,
that sounds like he's starting to get a little wild with it.
Yeah, adding the rice and
a little bit a little toasted.
No, toasted for flavor. By 1902, there were 3 mainline cereals at the Sanitas cereal factory, which was cornflakes, Granos biscuits, and Granos flakes. I'm sure they were all pretty much the same thing. Just one was made out of rice,
it's just
rice
wheat. That's cereal. Today.
That's cereal.
It's all just different shaped with different amounts of sugar in it.
Yep. He would continue developing, or Will would actually continue developing and marketing the flake cereals with his brother's permission. And around 1905, Will went up to his brother and said, "Hey, look, your food's really kind of dry and bland, and it's popular, but why don't we punch it up a little bit? Why don't we put a little sugar in it?" Put a little sugar in it.
Because we don't want everybody masturbating all the time.
And,
That's why.
And John was like, "Get the hell out of here with your nonsense.
Don't be ridiculous." Yeah.
Sugar's just going to make everybody super horny.
Seriously,
we cannot have that.
Can you imagine just fueling up all of these people with their morning breakfast cereal
with sugar and
nothing would get done. They would
everybody
just
would be having
rampages all day.
And I'm sure rates would go through the roof.
Oh my gosh.
Because people couldn't contain themselves. So obviously this led to a huge fight between Will and John. And as Will pointed out about his hypothesis about the brand foods preventing masturbation, he said it doesn't work. People are still Will went to his brother John and said, look, people are still masturbating even after eating your cornflakes.
No, not a chance.
That's
not a chance. Are you kidding me? Have you tried them? Dry cornflakes? It's like that internet couple from years ago that they wanted to be super religious. They were probably Seventh-day Adventists as well. And so anytime they got sexual urges, they went down to the kitchen and grabbed a potato and just started eating a raw potato.
But you know what? They might have definitely been followers of John Kellogg.
Maybe they should just buy some, cereal.
But Will dug his line in. John dug his line in. John was definitely like, nope, bland food's the way to not masturbate.
Absolutely.
And Will's like, it doesn't matter anyways. Everybody's going to masturbate no matter what.
And might as well make this not taste like absolute garbage.
Exactly. So in 1906, Will would actually split from John and open up the Battle Creek Toasted Cornflake Company, eventually becoming Kellogg, or Kellogg's. And he barred John from using the name Kellogg on any of his cereals. So not only did Will open up his own company, he said, now you can't use your name or our name on your company, even though you invented it first.
Yeah, patent pending my name. Called it.
I put a flag on it, so it's mine. In addition to his brother splitting, John would be kind of backstabbed by CW Post because CW Post, mentioned the guy who would go on for Post cereals, would come into the sanatorium, and John would treat CW Post. And on February 6th through November 9th, 1891 is when Post was staying there. Post obviously is getting fed the granolas, getting fed all the cornflakes, all that fun stuff. And then Post would be, hey, this shit's pretty good. I'm also going to add sugar to it on my own. Screw you. And not only did he leave and create his own cereal company, he also created his own sanitarium, and which was called the La Vinta Inn in March 1892 at Battle Creek. So not only did he steal a cereal idea, he opened up a new hospital like right across the street.
Yeah, I like what you're doing. I'm gonna do it too.
Are you
gonna change anything? No.
No,
I'm just gonna do the same.
I'm even gonna use the same name, Sanitarium.
This was super fun. Thanks for the idea.
Yep.
I had no idea that the cereal community was so close knit.
Right. He did later name his cornflakes the Toasties Double Crisp Cornflakes in January 1906.
They're just mouthfuls.
Yeah, like
Cap'n Crunch.
Yeah, exactly.
We figured it out.
Cornflakes. Just knock off all the rest of the crap. Cornflakes.
Yeah. Fruit Loops.
But nope. It's the Toasties Double Crisp Cornflakes.
Yeah, that's just too much.
Very much. So Kellogg would, going off to talk a little bit more about his whole science stuff and kind of where he starts to split with the church here. So Kellogg was instrumental in establishing the American Medical Missionary College in 1895. So in addition to establishing his own little hospital, the sanitarium, he also establishes a college.
He just likes setting shit up.
Yeah, and this is it's a medical college, but for
the missionaries.
For missionaries, Seventh-day Adventists. So
pray the broken arms away.
Yeah, but he actually believes in science. So when the church found out about this, it started to go a little bit downhill.
Because he made it a good college?
Yeah.
A good medical college?
Yeah, exactly. He believed that God was in all things, like I'd said before, and he began using his religious beliefs to run the sanitarium as a combination of European spa, hydrotherapy institution, hospital, and high-class hotel. So this is, like I said, kind of imagine this yuppie resort
that
claims to do some medical treatment on the side.
It sounds like a church scam type deal. A little bit.
Probably a scotch. He treated the rich, he treated the famous, and the poor all in one. Like he didn't discriminate. You're rich, you could come in. If you're famous, you can come in. If you're poor, We don't care.
No.
You know,
Anybody that can afford it, come on in.
well, he would, you know, he to give the guy a little bit of credit here, he actually did, you know, treat the poor with no cost if they could not afford other hospitals. So if you couldn't afford the post Toasties double crisp cornflakes sanitarium,
Right. You can come
you can come on over here. We gotcha.
You've got a coupon for 50% off. We'll match
Uh,
the lowest price.
he took a holistic approach. He felt that treating the body, mind, and spirit, one could be a fulfilled human and be cured through everything. So it was,
All right.
you know, we're doing that nowadays. So he's a
Yeah.
little bit ahead of his time. The church began to have a crisis between the sanitarium, science, and religious beliefs in the late 1890s and early 1900s. The church was now catching on to this whole, it's not in the Bible. We don't
Yeah.
want that shit. Get your science out of here.
Right.
You pray the sin away. You don't give them food to, you know, not tug it.
Yeah, don't be ridiculous. This is just ask Jesus. He'll give it to you.
Yeah, exactly.
And if not, I mean, sorry.
The
It was
church
meant to be.
the church was afraid that science would draw people away from the religious principles because, you know, church is always afraid of something that can compete with them, I guess.
That's right. Yeah.
Kellogg tried to
Well, education has always been a very
sticking point with the church.
Yeah, they've never really liked any type of new information.
I mean, for the longest time in the
Uh,
Catholic Church, like only the priests were allowed to have a Bible and read it.
Yeah.
We didn't let
Oh,
these
no,
regular
God.
people. No, trust me, it's in there.
No. Yeah. I can understand this. You cannot.
Yeah, exactly.
It's written in a language I can read, right? Yeah, but it's more complicated.
Like it's not meant for you. Just
Right.
trust me.
Trust me.
Kellogg tried to balance the science with religion by coming up with the idea of pantheism, which is where God is in all things. He wrote the book Living Temple in 1903 that would further his understanding of the connection of God and science.
Okay.
So
yeah.
again, a little bit interesting guy, kind of an anomaly. You don't get a lot of really religious scientists that are out there.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, there were more back then, and there still are many today that kind of think along the same lines of
pantheism is very much an idea that's still
you
out
can
there.
you can have all of science and God can be involved with it too.
Yeah,
It's
God's
not-
hands
yeah, that's still
guiding
there.
the
Yeah.
principles. Yeah. The church was trying to keep his ideas separate and encouraged secularization, which is, you know, definitely, you know, you keep your science-y over there, don't tell our people about it, and we'll keep our church over here, kind of thing. The church was very critical of Kellogg's teachings and the sanitarium and began to separate the two. Tensions reached a boiling point when on February 18th, 1902, the sanitarium mysteriously burned down,
Oh
Johnny.
no! Was it an electrical fire?
Well, you know, it is 1902, so yeah, it could have been, I guess. Almost all the guests would escape safely, but the property damage was estimated at between $300,000 and $400,000,
Holy shit.
which was twice the insured value. The sanitarium was owned jointly by the church and Kellogg.
Who insured this place?
Apparently, not a good insurance salesman, because it was.
The hell kind of inspector do they have going out and assessing the value? That's just.
Yep. Well, and the story gets a little bit funner, because Ellen White, the wife of the founder, would proclaim that a cleansing sword of fire was poised over the increasingly worldly and business-orientated Battle Creek Sanitarium, and claimed that the fire was God's will and forbid the reconstruction of the sanitarium. It sounds like somebody may have had a hand.
I think she
in
might
that
have
going up.
I think she might have written God's will on the Molotov cocktail she threw through the window.
I think you might be right. But without consulting Ellen, but with the approval of the board of directors of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, John would wind up rebuilding the sanitarium twice the size, with 2 floors, and this time, Johnny, fireproof.
Did he put a giant middle finger on the roof?
He might as well have. It was opened on May 31st, 1903, at the cost of $700,000, which is like,
Damn.
double the cost of the last one.
Well, and back then, Jesus, 1903, $700,000.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
insane.
Yeah. Kellogg would use the proceeds from his book to help pay for the cost of the new building, even though the book's publication was forbidden by the General Council of Adventists. So basically, the same board that allowed him to rebuild the sanitarium also was like, you can't print that book, and he just did a middle finger to everybody.
Yeah.
In 1907, Kellogg would be disfellowshipped as a part of a schism that split the church. So basically, at this point, now we really have the split between science and religion, and they're like, all right, get your science out of here. Kellogg, through court battles, would actually retain possession of the sanitarium and the American Medical Missionary College, and no hard feelings, right? Like, look, all right, I got the church. I mean, I got the. I'll keep the hospital. I'll keep the college. You guys keep the church.
Yeah, so this guy, I found an inflation calculator for the sanitarium thing that he spent $700,000 on.
Yeah, sure.
No idea how accurate this is, but the calculator I found, it said that is equivalent to 20,500,000 in 2020.
Yeah, sounds about right. That's a shit ton. That is a shit ton of money
Good God.
for a resort spa.
Yeah.
Kellogg actually did harbor no ill will. He would continue to practice and promote the Seventh-day Adventist ideas at a sanitarium and at the college, although, again, he was officially, booted out.
Right.
But he was like, whatever, I'll still do my thing.
Yeah.
Kellogg would actually wind up getting an honorary degree, an honorary doctorate, specifically in 1937 from the Oglethorpe University. So, some private college, kind of like Hanover somewhere, was like, here,
good for him,
you get an honorary doctorate.
Like, so,
although
he was
already
what?
has his, he already had several medical degrees.
How old was he in 37? He was like 84 years old or something like that.
Yeah, he's in his upper 80s. Because
thanks for the degree, guys.
Right, I'm gonna use it wholeheartedly. And on December 14th, 1943, he would pass away at the age of 91. So, maybe there was something to that whole vegetarian, not masturbating thing. Because, man, living at 91 in 1943,
I've seen people who are like 103 that say they smoke a cigar every day and drink whiskey every day. So maybe it's just genes
or luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, could be that. So to round us down here, I do have some fun facts for us. He did collaborate with George Washington Carver and is credited with partial discovery of peanut butter, even though Carver actually stole that idea from John instead, because John was serving peanut butter spread as far back as 1895 in his sanitarium. So basically, John invented peanut butter, Carver stole it, but at least gave him a little partial credit for it.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's not really about who invents it, right? It's about who makes it big.
Yeah, who makes it big, who gets credit for it.
You can invent something in your kitchen, but if it distribute it anywhere, what's it matter?
It's kind of like Edison. Like, yeah, he didn't invent a lot of his stuff,
right?
But he made it big.
But yeah, he made it available to
and he
people.
Sure as shit didn't correct you if you thought he invented it.
Well,
you invented the light bulb.
Hey,
sure did.
You try correcting every little thing people say about you; it'd be exhausting. So,
well, especially the good stuff, right? I don't want to correct the good stuff.
It's just a lot of work would go into it. It's not worth it. Just let him think it.
In 1896, he would invent, but not patent, Nutos, which is the first non-meat alternative. So think soy protein, kind of like tofu.
Bean burger crap.
Yeah, the bean burger crap. Yep, he was the first non-meat alternative.
No, thank you.
He did invent several medical pieces of equipment, including the radiant heat bath, movement cure apparatus, exercising apparatus, and the massage apparatus, and an enema machine.
Oh.
So it sounds like with the enema machine, maybe he was going in a different direction. Well, I can't masturbate, but I'll shove a tube up my butt and clean myself out that way. Prostate cleanse. One of the primary
your body is your temple.
Yeah, your body is your temple. One of the primary doctors that described the existence of germs and the idea of positive bacteria in the digestive tracts. So he's one of the first doctors to discover germs and there's good bacteria in
and realize
digestion.
That, hey, you can't get rid of all that bacteria because...
Yeah, we need that in our belly to digest things properly.
Is that probiotics, right?
Yeah, probiotics, yep. His wife would foster over 42 children, and they would wind up adopting 8 of them. And
good for them.
Yeah, really, honestly, that's
great. Yeah.
I work with foster parents.
No jokes.
I have
that's
no...
fantastic.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. So more power to them. He would write another book entitled Plain Facts for Old and Young, Embracing the Natural History and the Hygiene of Organic Life.
Okay.
And
again, a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. As long they did not know about concise and wrap this shit up. Yeah. It did identify 39 different symptoms that would help you understand whether a person was plagued by masturbation or not. So it is a book to help you determine whether somebody was a masturbator.
Spoiler alert, they are.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Historic Hindsight,
Every week, we take a look at some of the major events that took place during this week in a segment that we like to call This Week in History.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
All right, Johnny. So first up, I've got Julius Caesar is going to be assassinated on March 15th, 44 BC.
So, knife to the back, right?
Knife to several knives to the back, Johnny.
A couple.
So this happens on what's known as the Ides of March, which is a Roman day, like a day in the Roman calendar that corresponds with March 15th. It is marked by several religious observations, including being recognized as a time to settle debts. I guess Brutus really settled his debts to Caesar, didn't he?
Yeah.
Hi-yo!
Look at that.
According to Plutarch, as Caesar arrived to the Senate, the conspirators presented themselves with a petition to recall one of their exiled brothers. When Caesar was like, "Get the shit out of here! I don't want to deal with this. Nope, I'm the dictator, so you do what I say." They all surrounded him, pulled off his tunic, and began assaulting him. Caesar is reportedly quoted as saying, "Why? This is violence," which is hilarious because you're Caesar and you're probably one of the most violent people ever. But you're like, "What? To me?
Well, yeah.
You're doing violence to me."
No, I think it's more of just like a realization of why. He's like, this is violence?
This is violence?
This is what it feels like?
This feels awful. I don't like this.
No wonder they were all screaming in pain.
What have I been doing all these years? At that point, Casca thrust his knife at Caesar's neck, which Caesar wound up catching in his hand, and said, "Casca, you villain, what are you doing?" Like, because clearly I'm sure he's in shock and like, what the fuck is going on? Why are you all stabbing me? Within moments, the entire group was stabbing him, and according to records, there were 60 men that participated in this, and he was found with 23 stab wounds, including stab wounds from his friend Brutus, hence the whole et tu, Brute thing.
What were the other 37 people doing?
Just watching. You know, they wanting to be like there and like in support and involved, but like not actually wanting to get their hands dirty.
They were standing
so
in
case
circle,
in case things go south, they can claim deniability kind of. Well, like, yes, I was there, but I didn't physically stab him.
Yeah.
I'm sure maybe like, and with all that many people surrounding him, I'm sure like one or two people probably got stabbed inadvertently, like on a whoopsies.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, when you have knives just flailing about, there's a lot of cuts.
Somebody's getting cut. But this whole et tu, Brute thing is actually a Shakespeare lie. He never said that. Most reports indicate that he actually had no last words at all, other than covering his head while he's being mauled.
It's hard to have last words
when you're being stabbed
60 people are stabbing you. And you don't know why. What's going on?
Yeah.
Shit, guys, what the hell?
The only other words that might have been attributed as last words, which were right around the same time as Casca, you villain, why are you doing this, is "you too, child," when he sees Brutus. So, but
I feel like that was probably taken with liberties.
Probably taking a little bit of liberties, yeah.
I imagine it was just chaos.
I'm sure it was just chaos and him like, what the hell is going on? And then stab,
in like 3 minutes.
Gurgle.
Yeah.
Death. So our next thing for you, Johnny, is the first public bus service starts today on March 18th, 1662.
All right.
So a little bit ahead of its time.
Wait,
1662.
What time? Okay, sorry.
Bus.
I missed that.
Yeah, it's a they call it a bus. So it's the first use and idea of public transit that like was really well ahead of its time, and it started in Paris and was promoted by Blaise Pascal, who was a famous scientist at the time. So basically, this famous scientist who you probably actually studied a little bit because he. I don't know.
Who knows?
Who knows? I'm sure you did it at some point in college.
Hard to say.
You and your chemistry crap.
I mean, you know, chemistry majors study chemistry, not chemists.
All right, well, whatever, fine.
I probably should know who he is, but
anyways, he was a famous scientist,
my defense.
An early famous scientist, who convinces Paris powers that be that like, hey, a public transport system for the poor might be a cool thing, like to help them get around. It might be a little
horse-drawn?
Yeah,
just a big old horse-drawn.
Yep,
like
carriage. Yep,
big carriage.
So the Duke of Ronans thought that this idea was a great idea, and he winds up commissioning 7 horse-drawn carriages to operate as a public bus service, with each being able to carry 8 passengers at a time.
Well, thank God he didn't have Da Vinci do that. It would never would have
Yeah.
gotten done.
It would never have gotten done, no. King Louis XIV even gets involved, gives his approval, and on March 18th, there's this grand opening celebration for the opening of the public bus service. It would cost you 5 sous to ride, and the sous is the lowest valued coin, so like a penny.
Yeah. Okay.
So not expensive to ride. It was very popular for like the first week because it was kind of this cool new thing,
Sure.
and people were like, "Hey, this is awesome!"
Yeah, like
And-
like Indy's Red Line.
And then just like Indy's Red Line, everybody kind of forgot about it a week later.
And they realized, wait, I haven't had to go anywhere forever. Why the hell do I have
Why
to go somewhere
why do I have
now?
to go down? Yeah.
Where am I gonna go?
It also doesn't help that the poor who would have actually benefited from this thought that it was too highbrow and didn't ride it because they're like, nope, that's for the rich.
Yeah,
We don't want to get
little
on that garbage.
hoity-toity.
And so by 1675, it winds up getting disbanded. So, it made a run of it,
Yeah,
like 13 years.
not bad.
Not bad. And then public transit would not actually return in Paris until 1895. So
Wow.
literally several hundred years ahead of its
Yeah,
time.
ruined that idea for a while.
It sure
Couple
did.
hundred, like, hey, should we try to do something like get a lot of people moving something? Like, nah, we tried that before.
It didn't work.
150 years ago, didn't work.
We
Not
kind
gonna
of
work now.
half-assed tried it with 7 horse carriages. It's not like they were like this fleet of 300. It was 7.
I mean, how many did you need? It was the 1600s. What were there, like 78 people?
There were
living
like
in
tens
Paris?
of people in Paris in the 1600s,
Jesus.
Johnny. Come on. So my final thing for you here today, Johnny, is that the Confederate cruiser, the SS Georgina, would be destroyed on March 19th, 1863. So the SS cruiser Georgina set off on her maiden voyage with a cargo of munitions, medicines that would be valued at $1 million then, or $20,473,000 today.
Holy moly.
So a shit ton of money, munitions, equipment on this cruiser. It was touted and advertised as the strongest, most powerful cruiser in the Confederate fleet.
When will ship makers ever learn?
It's like, don't say it's indestructible.
Like, just take a chill pill when you're describing it. Be like, it's a ship. I made it. It's pretty good. It'll probably do its job.
So
Like,
the ship
a little
was
humility.
the ship would set off from Scotland. It was made in Scotland, and it was encountered by the Union blockade the minute it gets into Charleston harbor. So way to go,
Yep.
Union blockade.
Perfect.
You
Worked.
stopped the most powerful Confederate ship from entering the harbor.
Just like that.
It would become heavily damaged in the ensuing pursuit by the Union blockade,
Yeah.
and the Confederate captain would wind up just scuttling the ship, but was able to get his entire crew to shore. But
Just not the rest
not the
of it.
goods and munitions and all the shit that was important.
I mean, human life though, Tommy.
I think the Confederates needed the munitions
I think
and medicine a little bit more than the
That might have
20 some odd sailors
might
that
have
were on
saved a
board.
few more human lives.
Yeah. It was wound up to be the ship wreckage would be discovered by 18-year-old diver E. Lee Spence in 1965, who would also later find multiple other like sunken American treasures, including the Hunley submarine that was the Confederate Hunley. He finds that.
1965?
Yeah.
So this was this kid's summer job that he was using to pay his way through college, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe.
'Cause that-
He does
back in
become
the
like
day, that's what they do.
he becomes, I don't know if he actually winds up going to college. I didn't look a whole lot into him, but he does become like a famous like naval diver archaeologist person.
I feel
So
like to be that you just have to you need one find.
which he had, and then he struck
got
it big
yeah.
again.
And then it's just at that point everybody just throws money at you and tells you to go swimming in the ocean.
Although Johnny, I'm not sure how hard of a find this actually was, and I'm pretty sure it was
I mean, it
more.
was off the-
He was the first one to write it down because on a clear day, anyone can actually just dive down to this ship and see it by holding their breath and diving down to it. It was in a
Yeah.
very shallow part of the harbor.
I mean,
So-
and it's in a heart. Yeah, I don't know. But he pointed it out.
He was
And said, "Look,
he
guys."
was the first one to go down there and actually start bringing up some of the stuff that was there. He did find hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of sundries, munitions, medicines, but he did not find the 300 pounds of gold that were supposedly aboard.
Yeah, I'll bet he didn't. I
Well-
also would not have found the 300 pounds of gold.
I wouldn't have either, Johnny. But although
but all of my Google searches would have been how to melt down gold.
Into bullion, yeah. But here's a kicker though, Johnny. With this is you got to remember this is a Confederate boat coming from Scotland that was made by Scotland. Why would there be 350 pounds of gold on it? Like
Yeah,
you would
true.
think that would have been payment to Scotland for said
Yeah,
boat.
maybe it was their change.
Yeah, maybe. Hey, here's your change
Oh,
back.
sorry, you said a 700. It was too much.
I
Here's the-
really
Here's the
really,
300 back.
really don't think the Confederate ever had 350 pounds of gold, let alone.
Yeah, it's fun to think about pirate treasures though, and sunken treasure. And all
It
that.
is. Well, he did actually make a substantial amount of money on this find, anyways, though, because there was valuable stuff.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, just the historical value you're going to get paid
Yeah.
for it.
And it, like I said, he does go on later in life to discover the Hunley, which is pretty damn awesome because we're actually we brought it back up and we're fixing her up. You know, we're preserving her for the museum, so that's kind of cool.
That'll be neat. And that's This Week in History.